Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. May peace be upon those who follow the guidance. Welcome to Askia Educational Network. I'm your host, Askia Abdulaziz Muhammad Toure al-Muslimun. My objective is not to be sarcastic towards any person, any group, or any entity. But my objective is to be in compliance to the rules of fairness and equity. If I say anything that is good, it is from Allah. If I say anything that's offensive, it is from myself or it's from Shaitan. I first want to give salams to any Muslims that's watching this video. I want to say Assalamu alaikum. Today's topic is going to be on, inshallah, the foundation of Black Americans. The foundation of Black Americans is referring to African Americans whose descendants were slaves back in the 17 and 1800s. You have other people that's come to America since then. They also referred to as being black, but their descendants were not slaves. So the foundation of Black Americans, including myself, my descendants were slaves. These people are referred to as the foundation of Black Americans. Now, if I was a white American, so-called white people, because in Islam we don't refer to people, we don't put the white, black. In Orthodox Islam, it's not really about color. It's about the character. It's about people who's God-fearing. It's about the people who's doing goodwill. It's about the people who stand up for justice. It's not about color. But in this video, I'm trying to communicate with people that lives in society that's always putting emphasis on color. So if I was a white American, I would get tired of the foundation of Black American always talking about racism. Always talking about racism. Talking about what the white man has done, what the white man is not doing. You have videos, podcasts on YouTube, always talking about what the white man. So one of the reasons why they do this is that those people that have what is known as Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological disorder where you have this bondage, this emotional bondage with your oppressor. You have this emotional bondage with your captive. So many of the foundation of Black Americans, they have this problem, because why would you talk about these people while at the same time you say that they are going to heaven? You saying that a man that lived 2,000 years ago died for their sins, because the people that's causing you problems, generally speaking, they are Christians. So you have a psychological disorder, and it's called Stockholm Syndrome. Let me give you an example. The people who made these people slaves, and then they evolved to where they are today, they told them that this man was God. In Islam, we never had any pictures of any man or woman, any physical representation of the Creator. But the people that enslaved the ancestors of the foundation of Black Americans, they told them that this was God. But you still have bondage with these people. So here's an example of a group of people, the Ku Klux Klan. They Christian. When they become a Ku Klux Klan member, they have to take oath on the Bible. And many of the Klanmen in America, they became Ku Klux Klan from the pulpit of the church, because it was the preachers. They gave sermons encouraging white people, white Americans, to become Ku Klux Klan. And they based it on the Bible. They based it on one aspect of the story of Ham. You can't get that from the Quran. And then also they based it on what you see in nature. You will see black birds with black birds, and you would see red birds with red birds, and you would see blue birds with blue birds. So this is kind of how they laid the foundation to get millions of white people to become Ku Klux Klanmen. So you have the cross, you have this picture that says that Jesus saves. So the Stockholm Syndrome comes in when you have this bondage with the people who oppress you. It doesn't matter what they did to you, you have this bondage with them. So here's an example of a man, African American. His name is Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is the head coach of an NFL, a professional football team in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And you see him wearing a cross. So why is he wearing a cross that tells you that this man, which is not true, but this man died for their sins, and that these people who also had the cross, that these people are going to heaven. Although they lynched you, they castrated you, they did many harmful things to your ancestors, you still have this psychological bondage, this Stockholm Syndrome, where these people are going to heaven. So you see him wearing a cross. He wears a cross. When you see him, he's almost every game that you see him on television, he got this cross. And what's interesting about the cross, that the man that had this vision, Jesus was never actually on a cross. That's a different story, because in Islam we know that that's a pagan concept. It comes from a pagan story. But the man that came with the concept was Constantine. Constantine had his vision, and he said, with this sign we shall conquer. So you notice that when you look at the Christian people, when they went around the world, they had the cross on the mast of the ship when they went to these places to try to conquer them and convert them to Catholicism. But the interesting thing about that when you go to Rome, because Constantine was in Rome, when you go to Rome, when you go to the Arch of Constantine, they have an Arch of Constantine in Rome, Italy, right down the street from the Colosseum. So when you go to that arch, there's not a single Christian symbol on that arch. There's no crosses, there's no fish, there's nothing that's connected to Christianity. So you see this man wearing a cross, and this is referring to a Latin cross, because you had the other cross, type of cross. This is the Latin cross, because Christianity, when you see the African American, the foundation of African American, they've been influenced by Western Christianity, what the Romans and the Greeks. So this is referred to as a Latin cross. Now the other cross has a circle in it. It has the sun disk in it. You know, you have the cross, and then you have the sun disk. Now that's a different story, because it connects to this pagan concept, because we Muslims, you know, this is the true religion. No paganism, no polytheism, no racism, no nationalism, none of that. All that stuff that you've been exposed to, you don't have it in pure Islam. So Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological disorder. Now, if Jesus, may peace be upon him, Isa alayhi salam, if he was, according to the Bible, if he was crucified, if he was killed or murdered in an electric chair, instead of seeing this man wearing a cross, you will be seeing him wear an electric chair. You'll be wearing an electric chair, because that would be the symbol of Christianity. You would be seeing this electric chair on top of churches, church buildings around the country, around different parts of the world. You will see this. Instead of seeing this cross, you will see this. So this is Stockholm Syndrome. Because why are you, I'm talking about the Foundation of African Americans is watching this video, because we Muslim, we won't even allow the cross into our home, because we know a little something about the truth. But why are you go to a place of worship that says that this man died for the sins of these two men. These two men are the people that killed, murdered, and lynched Emmett Till back in 1955. They were Christians. And the people that was at the trial that did not find them guilty, they were Christians. So again, it goes back to Stockholm Syndrome. It's a psychological disorder where you have this bond with the people who disrespect you, who captive you, who humiliated with you, that castrated you, that did all sorts of things to you. You have this psychological bond with them. So another example would be, for instance, you have a moment in American history back in May the 31st through June the 1st, 1921. There was a young man that his name was Dick Rowland. Dick Rowland was 19 years old. He was a shoe shine person. You know, he was a shoe shiner. And he was accused of assaulting a white woman, young girl, 21 years old. Her name was Sarah Page. And he was accused of assaulting her on the elevator. This happened back in 1921 in a place called Tulsa, Oklahoma. So this area was known as Negro Wall Street. This phrase, Negro Wall Street, was coined by Booker T. Washington. Now they say Black Wall Street, but back then they said Negro Wall Street. And what's interesting about that, one of the things interesting about that, the foundation of Black Americans who are Christians, this person that they were taught that was God Almighty, or taught that was Jesus, he never even mentioned the word black. But they've been trained to be against Islam. They were been trained to be against the Prophet Muhammad, who did more things for black people, who was around more black people in Arabia than any person in human history as far as a prophet is concerned. He was around black people. The most famous, let me give you an example, the most famous free slave was Bilal ibn Rabah. He was black. The only woman that the Prophet Muhammad referred to his mother after his biological mother died, because his biological mother died when he was a very young child. The only person that he referred to as his mother was a black woman named Barakat. You don't have that in Christianity. He don't even mention the word black. The person that knew most of the Quran, the Prophet Muhammad told the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, the people in Arabia, he told them to learn the Quran for 4 people. And the first one that he mentioned was Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was black. He knew the Quran better than anybody. There's many examples. You had Usama ibn Said. Usama ibn Said was a black teenager who the Prophet Muhammad appointed to be the head of the military. You don't have that in Christianity. In fact, you don't even have a military in Christianity. The Muslims were the first people that went into battle with uniforms on. They are known, when I say Muslim, I'm not talking about the word Muslim is referring to everything that God's created. Everything that God created, including Jesus, the moon, the stars, everything is a Muslim, because the word Muslim is referring to that which submits to the will of God. So everything is in a state of submission. In the NIV in Hebrews chapter 5:7, it says that Jesus was heard because of his reverent submission. I have other videos confirming this. So check out my videos, subscribe and share the videos, because this is educational. So what I'm trying to say is that these Christian people between May the 31st and June the 1st, 1921, they destroyed more than 35 square blocks of Greenwood. Even destroyed a church. They had airplanes that came, the first time in history that airplanes came and dropped bombs on the neighborhood and killed people and destroyed their property, their homes, their businesses, many things that they destroyed. But if you have a Stockholm Syndrome, you will still bond with the people who even did that to you. So this is what this is, Stockholm Syndrome. So the people in Tulsa, Oklahoma, although they destroyed a church, they still go back to church. They still go to that same church today. They rebuilt it, but they still go to that church today. Even though the people that destroyed their church, destroyed their neighborhood, they still have that bond. You want to be like them, you still got their names. Like this man's name is Mike Tomlin. He has a European slave name. He's wearing a cross. He's like a poster child for the NFL, so that when you see the Pittsburgh Steelers playing, you see this guy wearing a cross. So the object is to keep you in that religion, to keep you away from Islam, because in Islam, the person, the first, when you look at the history of the foundation of Black Americans, their history, they don't show you Abu Suleiman Diallo, the first portrait of an African slave. The first portrait of an African slave, he was not wearing a cross. He was wearing what I wearing right here, and what I have inside of his pouch is the Quran. So when you look up Ayuba Suleiman Diallo and see the portrait, you will see him wearing a pouch, because he wrote the Quran. He was a person who memorized the Quran, and that Quran was put in leather. And when you see the portrait, which is the first portrait of an African slave, you will see him with this on. There would be the Quran. He wouldn't be this pagan symbol of the cross, because I'm not a person who has Stockholm Syndrome, and he was a person who did not have Stockholm Syndrome, because you really don't know about the history of that, because they have conditioned you to be a Christian. And Jesus never said to be Christian. So I noticed, in closing, I noticed that a few years back there was a young lady named Breonna Taylor. This is Breonna Taylor. This is a picture of Breonna Taylor. She was killed by police officers. Many people came to the city to protest and try to stand up for justice for Breonna Taylor. And one of the people that stood up for justice, she led a group. Her name was Linda Sarsour. Linda Sarsour is a Muslim woman from Brooklyn, but she's Palestinian. You had a Palestinian woman go to the city in which she was killed by the police. She was the leader of the organization. She had another lady with her named Tamika Mallory. But Linda Sarsour, she was the most articulate. She also led the Women's March in Washington, D.C. She did some things, but it was a Palestinian girl that came and fought for justice for Breonna Taylor. But I noticed that the Christian people, the foundational Black Americans, they never asked the question, what was the religion of the person that killed you? They never asked you the question, what was the religion? They never mentioned the religion of the people who destroyed Negro, what is called Negro Wall Street. They don't ask you what their religion was. So it's a psychological disorder that they have. They don't ask you what was the religion of the police officer that killed Breonna Taylor. They never ask you that question. So in closing, they don't ask you the religion of the people who killed Emmett Till. You can go all the way back in history. They don't ask you that question. So what it is, it's called Stockholm Syndrome. They bind with the oppressor. They have this psychological bondage, this emotional bondage, this emotional connection with the people that oppress them. And they If anyone comes along to try to teach them something different, or someone trying to have you be a little different than the people that oppress you, they push back. They have a bondage. They'd rather be like the people that oppress them as opposed to the people who's trying to free them. So until next time, Assalamu alaikum.